Hello, I'm Jeremy, and this is the first of hopefully many little DRAS community fish room tours. So this here is my room. I'm really only going to be covering, let's say, the four main tanks. As you can see, I'm just kind of going over and around here. You can see my stacked bins, the lobster tank, a lot of the areas where I like to do my culturing of various live foods. And you can see I like to grow a lot of plants aquaponically. I love growing stuff off the top of my aquariums. And these are some of the bins I made. And we'll be getting to the very first setup that I want to show off, which will be the South American biotope. So the South American biotope here, the water's a little light now because of water change, but I like to keep it black water using botanicals. In this tank, there are rosy tetra and Geophagus surinamensis, which are both fish from South America. They're from Suriname. Their common name being the red-striped earth eater. You can see they aren't too colorful now as juveniles. These ones are pretty young, but they grow to be nearing a foot in length and being one of the most colorful earth eaters, though they do grow slow. So I guess it is a bit of a rewarding process. As for the botanicals in here, I use a lot of alder cones, Indian almond leaves, catappa bark. There are those fancy kind of heart pods in here. There's oak leaves. A whole bunch of different kind of botanicals, which would give the water that nice tan dark color. It also helps improve the health of the fish a good bit. The botanicals are antifungal, and it is a food source for the various live foods that I do put in here, which I would hope last a little while to serve as cleanup crew. Not to mention that the black water does help mimic the natural habitat of these fish, as the areas they come from do have very dark water. Plus, the geophagus get to graze off any little biofilms or any kind of microfauna that appear on the botanicals as well. As you can see that most of the botanicals in this tank have actually been buried by sand at this point. Okay, so let's move on to the turtle tub. You can see I've constructed a number of large DIY filtration and aquaponic systems here. Keep the turtle tub nice and clean, as even though there's not many animals in this setup, the turtle is incredibly messy. There he is now. Small turtle, so he's a loggerhead musk turtle. So if you wanted a small turtle, this is the best one you can possibly get. Minimum tank size for this guy is about a 30-gallon. Meanwhile, you get a red-eared slider and you're looking at 100+ gallons if it's a female, and still nearing that amount if it's a male. But this turtle this is about his full size. They don't get much larger than beyond 5 inches of shell. And unlike a red-eared slider, for example, these guys don't need lots of walking around room. In fact, most people would say they don't even leave the water, which I've found to not be true. This guy, the second you come into the room or he hears motion, he will enter the water, but he does come out of the water to bask. So he does need all that fancy UVB and all that business that reptiles need. And as you might have noticed, I do keep fish with this turtle, because despite him being a carnivore, his main diet is snails, which is what his big old loggerhead is for crushing that shell. But these kinds of turtles are more so known as water walkers, as they aren't super graceful swimmers, and chasing down a fish is not likely to happen. Though he does probably catch, I would say, 1 fish a month or so. But the gambusa that I do keep him with, the western mosquito fish, have been breeding successfully and aren't bothered by him in the least. They even steal his food. All right, so let's go on to the next setup. I would say the main setup of this entire room. Okay, so here's the lobster tank that I repurposed for freshwater fish keeping. And it's home to a fish that's thankfully very popular with DRAS and is a care species. So these are Amica splendids, the butterfly split fin guded. And they are also in here with dogfish, red gara. And this is also home to a majority of my Anubias and Bucephalandra species. So these gudeds I did originally get from a DRAS member, and they have bred and done wonderfully in this setup. And I'm really excited to give back when it comes to gudeds. And something nice to mention is the gara have also bred in this tank, which is fantastic considering that most of the info that you find online, they seem to mainly be either wild caught or bred through hormone injection, as they did used to be used in the spa industry. But I think they're really fun fish in their own right, and they get along with the gudeds beautifully. So now I'm going to move ahead to the final setup I wanted to show today, just to keep things quick. These are red-tailed gudeds. Xenotica esenai, I believe, is their scientific name, and they're also a care species. You can see their body's a lot more stout and stubby than the butterfly split fins. And these gudeds aren't as common in the Durham, Toronto area, and it would be nice to see some more of them. But I do have to say that since I've had these fish, they've done really well. They have bred for me. Recently, I would say within the past couple weeks, months, I have had a lot of die-off of their young. Not to say they're fry, but a few fish that were a couple months old, let's say. And I want to say that it is just because of inbreeding, as I haven't been able to source any new red-tailed gudeds. And I don't know if the store where I originally got from does get them from any particular, and like any multiple source. But we'll see. It would be nice to at least get a few more breeders within the area so we can try and keep a healthy line going. And for now, that's the end of my little fish room tour. I only covered a section of what I have, as I do like to keep a number of saltwater enclosures as well. And even some more gudeds on top of the care species that I showed. But I wanted to leave lots of times for questions, or if anyone has questions now, I'd be happy to answer. But I hope that this was a little enjoyable tour, and people might be excited to do tours of their own in the future, as that's a trend that we're hoping to get started here. So once again, thanks for your time, everybody. And we look forward to seeing your own tours in the future.